Welcome everyone. We will be talking about data-driven human resources. As in this presentation, we will understand the importance of data-driven metrics, decisions that HR takes, what are the implication and importance towards it. So let us proceed with the presentation. The mission is to increase effectiveness if you want to go around it. And in fact, all of the HR processes of late has been automated. Now that means there are a lot of data points, there is a lot of data that has been generated, and if we can keep a tab on the data, it will give us a great insights about what actually is happening, the effectiveness of the HR processes, the talent management decision making, what we are doing good and where a little more focus is required. So organizations are passionate about helping organizations maximize workforce capability, probably capacity too, and enabling practitioner to build rewarding careers. Now, these can only happen if we have a data-driven solutions to all the business challenges thereby. And that is what we are looking forward to it. There are many dashboards, there are many productivity applications, software, algorithms available in the market, both and as a free version and as a paid version. Definitely you just have to fine tune it to the requirement of your company, probably your industries. So let us understand what is workforce analytics is all about it. It's basically a methodology for creating insights on how investment in human capital impact business outcomes can create a competitive advantages for the HR. However, despite strong strategic, financial, functional business cases for investment in these core competencies, probably very few organizations rate themselves in supporting talent management decisions and decision that has been backed by data thereby. This is what we need to understand. Why do we go for workforce analytics? What is all about this productivity that we are looking into it? We are looking also for the longevity of an employee in an organization. We are not looking into longevity, but probably how much they are contributing to the overall objectives of the organization thereby. So there is a lot of advantages that can be accrued for HR with the usage of certain metrics, certain analytics that comes around it. So then we can believe or we can study the return on investment into such processes and equipment. Often the challenges is not to access the data, but probably to take driving action based on the information provided. This is what the major challenges might be. Particularly, I would love to cover three topics in this presentation. One, identifying business issues to which workforce analytics may be applied. Second would be all about structuring the analysis. And the last one, the third one, is delivering the result in a compelling and convincing fashion. So let me tell you what is actionable analytics. Now, there are many analytics which comes out which might not be worked upon it or probably unworkable to a certain extent. So we have something which are non-actionable and something which are actionable altogether. What are non-actionable? Let me go around it. Data without context or quantification. Let's say extract date. There are dates when you have extracted the data sources, the exclusions, reporting for the sake of reporting. You just have to come up with certain data. Probably you are stuffing up with informations, nothing else. Not that this information is anyway productive or at all. Almost anything is in Excel. Yes, definitely yes. Leadership want conclusion, not columns of data, probably or complex formulas. So difficult to drill into the potential root causes. An example, let me give you an example. Let's say data table by head count on a cost center. Does it make sense? You need to look at not as a cost center but as a profit center, and what are the cost elements that has been talking. So we have to have somewhere down the corner a comparison to make a sense of it, make an insights into it. I have to understand the analytics thereby. Massive amount of transactional data. Does it make sense that it tells you the health of the company? If there are so many of transactional data, it might tell me that there's a lot of engagement in that particular position, but probably is it productive? Again, can be debatable. Now let me tell it to you certain data which are actionable. Actionable data are data which tells a story about the organization, the story of the organization, whether it is going on the right path or it is not, it is deviating from the path altogether, or it is being hampered by the environment, or probably is get stuck somewhere down the middle. It will tell you the status quo thereby of an organization. tied to a firm priorities, challenges sponsored by a business leader. Now, what are actionable? Trended to show cyclicity snapshot for tactical issues. Let me give you an example, but that should clarify all your doubts as far as actionable data are talking about. Let's say we can have a trending graph by headcount in an organizational unit. We can have a trending graph in terms of years, in terms of quarters, and then we can see how does this graph evolved and what was it related to the revenue generated. We can have an EEO category, equal employment opportunity category. What was the parameters? What are the genders available? What are the mixes? What are the demography of the employees in the organization? Then we can have a retirement projection using logical assumption for retirement and observed trend. It is about the number of people who are going to be at looking for a better revenues, attrition, the retirement in case somebody is approaching the retirement ages, somebody is looking what is the attrition rate that comes around it, and we can predict with fair bit of an accuracy of what actually will be coming around. So that is what actionable data are all about it. So framework for assessing actionability, let us go about it. It is both of an art and a science. Now, using data to drive talent decision. Basically, did I say it's both of an art and a science? The ability to ask the right question, shape the analysis, deliver the findings, in addition to having access to the metric based on high quality data drawn from a range of source, and that is what we are calling about science. Yes, it's the shaping of the analysis, the findings are all about identifying the issues. But when you get, how did you find this issue? And then probably you dive deep and find out data is relevant to it. Probably then sequence the data in a proper fashion, and that is what is analyzing the data is all about it. This is again the science part. So we have the issues there, we have the problems, we have the events, we have certain things which is unmanageable. Probably then we find the reasons behind those things, try to shape up the data. Now this is where the science is all about it, and upon the science you come up with certain analysis, certain insight, and probably deliver your findings. This is again your art. Now somebody might give it an upright deliver upfront, somebody might be soft in their approaches, somebody might wait for the situation to simmer down before actually coming with an action. These are what your arts is all about it, your style of leadership, your style of operation, as the case might be. So breaking down this further from observations to intervention, how do we go around it? We still have the 5 step. First step is the observation, then we come into hypothesis, probably analyze the part about it, communicate what is the outcomes, and probably go for the intervention. In the under observation, we are looking at awareness of scoping of issues, independent of guidance, collection of data that describe the issues, and probably considering related topics. Whereas in a hypothesis, we should be formulating a theory. This is good or this is bad. We should take umbrella because it rains. We should take umbrella because it's too sunny. What are the reasons? The hypothesis is please take an umbrella in any cases, whether it rains or whether it's very sunny or the day. Probably then you come to the conclusion that umbrella is required, or else you might say if you might look for umbrella if it's rain, or you might not. So you need to find out it's null hypothesis vis-a-vis hypothesis. So formulation of the theory is very utmost priority, very foundational. Cause and effect, describing the why, giving your analysis as a skeleton, knowing where not to look, where not to go around it. We'll talk about the analysis part. Assessing your hypothesis, collecting, supporting, or refuting data, rethinking your initial hypothesis. May have to step back and change hypothesis as often as possible. You should, I believe, you should not have a fixation for a particular process, particular operation style. You should be adaptable. You should be flexible enough to change your stance as on when on required, and that is what analysis is all about. Your stance should be based on the data that has been there. Let us go with the communication, sharing your learning, convincing others that action should be taken, acquiring resources, demonstrating understanding as the case might be. Intervention is taking action, expanding resources to inflect the business, tracking impact, making appropriate mid-course correction as the case might be. We are talking about a lot of mid-course correction that needs to be done then and there. So we will talk of those three steps in this particular presentation. First and foremost is to identify the issues for business analytics. Find those business issues for analytics altogether. Start with the strategy, not with the data. Now you look into it, we need to identify the issues. Remember, these are three steps that we will be talking about it. So start with the strategy, not with the data, because there are no issues. What are the insight that we look into it? First, it is your strategy. What are we aspiring to? We want to grow at the rate of 20%. We want to enter a new market. We want to cut down on our cost. We want to improve customer satisfaction. We want to have a recall value in the minds of the customer. We want to innovate. These might be my alternative strategies that can be around it. I have given you n numbers of strategies that comes around it. So once you're sure about the strategies, can we speak about the challenges? Yes. What do we have the talent for the strategies? Do we need to do around it? Do we have sufficient resources at our disposal? Are there any gaps out there? Do we need to hire people, more people? Does the workforce understand the philosophy? Does the workforce understand the challenges that might be facing around it? Are we actually retaining high talent people or not? Which workforce programs have the highest projected financial impact? Do we pay for high performance thereby? So ask the right question as the case might be. Probably once you have the strategy, you have identified your challenges, this will give you a better understanding, a clearer picture of what to do and what not to do based on the answers of fact and probably your gut feeling. You should have a tenure in my mind, a staff turnover percentage in mind, quality of hire should be taken into consideration. There should be ambiguity in the pay, and there should be a pay parity among the employees, and so on and so forth. This will further nose let you down to your action or implementations or the interventions thereby required. So what are the actions that you can take around it? We can plan for our workforces, right? We can optimize pay distribution. Evidently, yes. We can change the onboarding process and so on and so forth. This will translate into all positivities. You believe me or not, we started from the strategy, we collected the data, we understood the data, dissected the data, and then probably we are implementing the outcomes as per the insights have predicted. The impact would be definitely all about growth, all about cost reduction, all about effective leadership, and so on and so forth. So start with the strategy. I keep on saying start with the strategy and not for the data. Do not look for data. Do not get into the data, because that would be a massive harakiri on your part. So what business cases for analyzing workforce is all about it? Let's say there might be, I'm just giving you two requests altogether. Let's say generate headcount report for 5 business units. That is what the request number 1 says around it. So what do we go about? Concerns about discrepancy between HR and the finance headcount. The finance might say n numbers headcount. The HR might say n plus or minus delta numbers of headcount. How do we go around it? Would it be have to have this information for a business case? Definitely yes, but this is not of a very important priority. It is a low end of priority. Probably there might be anomaly of here 1 or 2 headcounts here and there. But what happens? We need to go into the next request or next scenario, which is investigate retirement risk in critical roles. Absolutely in vital roles. How many people do you think will actually leave the organization in the middle? Reason forecasted spikes in retirement by 2050. Economic analysis indicates tightening labor markets. Business cases could increase vacancies and replacement cost by, let's say, 5 or 10% as the case might be. Summary is high priority. When a request comes in, my first question is, why do you need this data in the first thing? You need to understand why do you require this particular data in the first case. Any request in the workforce must include a business case. Remember, when we are talking about critical roles and the retirement or the attrition at that particular role, it becomes much more of a higher priority vis-a-vis the number of headcounts that we are soliciting, which is not of a high priority, or in fact which is of a very insignificant priority. Why? These are the cases for analyzing a workforce data. Let's say what my gut feeling would check me or tell me. So metrics typically available are recruiting, let's say time to fill, cost per hire, number of open positions, and the rehire rate. Now, what happens with the chief human resource officers make. Should we hire mid-career staff, paying premium for those relationships, or invest in training at entry level? As a HR people, the talented talent management people would be always be looking into it. Should we hire at a low price and probably definitely upgrade them with the requisite training, or should we hire an experienced person, probably save on your cost as far as training is concerned, not only cost but also time. But at the same time, you are ending up by paying more in terms of your salaries and things like that. Then probably on the paradigm of learning, the metrics will tell learning staff ratios, training for full-time employees, FTEs, individual development plan, IDP completion rates, and learning penetration. What we are looking into it. What does the HR fellow, the chief executive officer and the HR field will be going around it? He should be thinking, or she should be thinking, should we spend $20,000 on a leadership development offsite, or hire an executive coach to provide the ongoing feedback? What should we look into it? Should we go for a on a resort, probably on an outskirt of a city, probably come together, get together, have a proper understanding of about what leadership can be looking into it, what the lacuna can go around it, or should we get an external consultant and probably give them the right feedback, or should I say sensitize people at the top level and all the person who matters about what exactly is going to impede or impending into the organization. Last but not the least, mind you, I'm giving just an understanding. I'm trying to open the window in your brain for making what exactly the gut feeling should be always be all around. Let's say on a talent management scale, the metrics might give me average performance rating, termination rates, engagement scores, percentage of goals, or number of goals completed, as the case might be. Whereas the CTO or the CHRO or CPO, the Chief People Officer, Chief Talent Officer, Chief Human Resource Officer, would again contemplate which investment will increase engagement, reduce critical staff turnover, and achieve a 20% revenue growth at the same time. So this is what the person would be obsessed with: reducing attrition, reducing critical staff, increasing engagement, and probably enhancing the revenue growth by 20%. This is what we are talking about it. Let us move to the step number 2 altogether. We'll talk about analyzing data with actionability in mind. We are going to take some actions. Remember, we just don't have the data, we have some insights from the data also, and how do we proceed around it. I have given you a lot of dashboards. These are productivity dashboards from different websites, which tells me how good, bad, ugly the particular company is doing around it. And this is data interpretation or data representation, nothing else. So element of data analysis, what are we looking into it? We are trying to establish a trend. Remember, the trend can be upward or downward or sideways, the way you want to move around it. Examining variances in internal performances, examining external benchmark, conducting root cause analysis, exploring related issues, as the case might be. Look out here. This is what we are looking out. Examining trends, examining variances in internal performances, the external benchmark, conducting root cause analysis, and exploring related issues with the passage of time, as the case might be. So this is what we are looking forward to it. Understand what metric tells us and what is missing. Used to determine whether the firm's workforce is expanding or contracting. Please let me know, and please be assured what we are talking around it. The number of external hires for every one terminations. That is what the description is all about. And the formula is have an external hire or termination that we goes around it. So we have applications used to determine whether the firm workforce is expanding or contracting. Are we hiring more, or is there or the number of employees is depleting altogether? So we need to understand what is the process and should we go for external hires or not. So possible scenarios, we can go for contracting. Definitely, yes. Contracting is one possibility that can be done there, then and there altogether. We can have a net hire ratio which should be less than 1, indicating fewer employees were hired than probably are terminated. On the other hand, we can be doing expanding, wherein the net hire ratio should be more than 1. That means more employees have been hired than been terminated. So this is all about expansion. So analysis, the dimensions, the slice, helps you to understand the pie slice I'm talking about, understand the growth or contraction of a subgroups. Limitation does not account for magnitude of hires or terminations, only relative comparison between two. But when I say magnitude is a quantum of hire, is it the position that have been hired or been fired are at critical levels or at a base level or the entry level position. It just tells you the percentage of hires and fires thereby as far the graphics are concerned. So this is what we need to understand. So now let us have burden of proof. What are the burden of proof? So let's say what level of confidence in analysis data will be acceptable? 100%, 95%, 80%. I would comfortable. You need to say about what which is the right thing. I would say anything between a 95% is acceptable. Very much acceptable. But then you will not be surprised if the percentage of relatively is around 80%, which is the in real terms acceptable performances. But we should always hire for 100% confidence, right? Always 100% confidence. But then there it goes. For different analysis, you may find different answers to this question. Did I say so? Did I say so? Somebody might say 100%. I might be vouching for 95%, but in reality, it is generally the cases of 80% of the time you are on the right type, right path altogether. This is what we are looking forward to. For using supplementary information, what will be the audience require? The primary data, the secondary data, or any anecdotal incidents that comes around it. And you might have a lot of history that can tell it to you. Can you build confidence in less worthy pieces of data by triangulating to get an answer, by pulling in another person, by pulling in another person with a different perspective, have the triangles in place where you have a dispute or where you have a bone of contention between first and the person A and person B. The best way to resolve it, get somebody from another person C into that problem, and they will come up with a solution which might be much more manageable and acceptable all the way. Let us come to the very last step of this particular presentation. The step 3 is all about delivering. Now, delivering the findings to drive the actions, thereby implementing, intervening, and that is what we are looking for it towards it. So we need to have a compelling message. Step 1 is a number of human capital issues that are important to company A must have been identified. They should include diversity, skills, talent, employee performance, productivity, build versus buy decisions, and so on and so forth. Whereas step number 2 will tell you how much quality time that your group is looking at the data in the dashboard. Identify one issue that seems to be very significant. What are the biggest gaps between the actuals and the desired performances? The leverage is thereby. You need to tell me, you need to say, scatter, analyze, and probably go along with it. We need to understand this process every moment, every time that we come across with it. So build an argument as to why you have identified particular workforce issues has been the most important one. Be sure that your argument will be relevant to a business leader as opposed to any colleagues in the HR. Prepare a brief presentation to present on the other group, exploring the issues thereby. What is important? How do you go around it? What is needed thereby? So the idea is you should have less data and more story. You look into it, a dashboard which gives you absolutely pinpointing of the data and explicit outcomes altogether. So communicate your main findings of your analysis, such as the drivers of your turnover. You have the dashboard which tells you the drivers altogether. Is it going up? Is it going down? What are the high potential? What are you looking into it? And probably often have a pictographical representation of the summarized data point with detail leveling available for drilling through in the reserve and the back pocket altogether. So tips for delivering effective analytics, let me give it to you. Linking human capital data to other sources. Obviously, yes, business data, we are talking about financials to create impact. More than just data is required. Report, analytics, and should contain stories and insight that communicates what exactly the result has been displaying. The past is just as important as the present. Remember this thing. Historical data is essential for developing forecast. Dollarize your business impact. Convert HR metrics into financial impact. Position is important. Ensure key messages as appropriate, as timely, as possible, as actionable, and thereby making the data much more relevant, generating meaningful data in a way that can be used by all levels of management. Relevant reporting, make report meaningful by aligning with business strategies, organizational goals. What is it in for me? Tailor the message being conveyed so that executives can easily relate to it, as the case might be. We need to go for it with every point of time. Now, let me part this particular presentation for another two more slides. Let me give it my concluding thoughts to you for understanding what has been displayed and what needs to be data needs to be analyzed, what an essential dashboard should comprise this, all about it. Let me go about. Remember, in common challenges for successful workforce analysis is poor data integrity. If we cannot find or draw a relation between causes and effect, probably it is an incomplete business rules or unclear ownership where the problem rises is all about it. Let's say competing HR priorities, is it of a lack of urgency or the no business case for action? Is absolutely it competing with one another. Inefficient reporting is manual process or volume is more than the value. Too much of labor being involved, too much of labor, too much of time consumption that comes around it. It's very inefficient reporting. And last but not the least would be end user empathy. Data not being tied to the decision, no matter what we are talking around here. So create a consistent approach to entering managing such data for potential solution, having a consistent, regular intervention, cross-functional data that comes around it, assign accountability to the data quality. In terms of competing HR priorities, identifies, or should I say prioritize what metrics matters the most. Once you have prioritized, you have a clear idea what should be addressed at the first hand process. Quantify them. Let us talk about inefficient reporting and how do we go about it. Can we reduce the number of overlaps? Can we have less number of duplication of the work? Can this particular work be automated altogether so that there might be a lot of volume, but then let the computer handle it and let it not occupy a human being as a resource. And the end user empathy is having increased HR credibility, using hypothesis to seek out quick wins and end user feedback in the loop. So the last slide would be what are the success factors bring to workforce analytics and planning? Number one, strategy wise, it should design around the HR roles. Yes. It should lower the cost. Yes. It should increase, enhance partnership. Definitely. When I talk of partnership, we're talking about services, networking, benchmarking, technology, and you name it, we have having it. Now let us look onto the functional level. Now it should be a multi-organizational design. We should be able to cut through the organization altogether, multi-organizational design, view historical organizational structure, have n numbers of metrics, out-of-box reports every now and then, and support novices. When I say novices, the layman who are just into the system, who can understand the working pattern thereby. Technical is instant usability, custom design for analytics instead of business intelligence tool, transactional benchmarking, data quantification, uh, let's say what are we looking into, fact checking and so on and so forth, constant pace of SaaS innovation, software as a service innovation that comes around it. Last but not the least is on an individual level, we need to have an access to the analytics planning consultant. We need to see where we are going as a company, as an individual, as a functional, as a departmental thing, and leveraging the global customer network thereby with regular publications of article. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video.